Welcome everyone to the game between Domaraju Gukesh, the world champion, and Hans Niemann, one of the best youngsters in American chess who's gunning to become a world champion himself. Hans Niemann is playing really well at the Tata Steel chess tournament. He is on 6.5 points, half a point behind the leaders. Meanwhile, Gukesh, he's on 5.5 points and will be looking to have a strong finish in this tournament. I'm really excited for this clash between these two players because they are such big fighters. There's no chance in the world that it's going to be a dull game. A handshake here, and off we begin. Hans Niemann with the white pieces. What's his first move going to be? And this, dear friends, is the ambit recap of the day. Pushes his pawn to e4, and Gukesh now responds back with e5. He brings his knight out to f3. And knight comes out to c6, defending the pawn. We have bishop to b5 played. The Ruy Lopez is on the board. And now pawn to a6, questioning the bishop there. And bishop gets back to a4. Knight to f6. And white castles here. The bishop comes out to e7. We have the Ruy Lopez on the board. The main line, rook e1 is the main line. He goes for d3, which is also very popular but very solid. And Hans likes to play this system. It's a very solid system, but for these two players who are big fighters, I'm pretty sure craziness is going to unleash very soon. Bishop b3, black castles here. And now pawn to a4 is a very logical move generally by white. Because with this move, you try to activate your rook. And by the way, Hans Niemann is talking about something that's disturbing him. Gets up. Maybe there's something happening in the crowd. You can see all the people in the crowd as well. Curious. He plays his pawn to a4. Bishop comes out to b7. Gukesh, of course, very well versed with this opening. He would know this as one of his main, I think, preparations for the World Championship match. h6. You will see that he's not shutting down his bishop here by d6. Pawn takes pawn. Maybe it was also possible to start with knight c3 directly, before taking pawn takes pawn, rook takes rook. He takes it with the queen. And now the knight comes out to c3. The knight puts pressure on the b5 pawn. We have bishop b4, a slightly offbeat move there by Gukesh. Bishop d2, now once again threatening the b5 pawn. And Gukesh takes. He's giving up his bishop pair. It's a very, very interesting way to play. And now will put his pawn on d6. His bishop no longer so bad on e7 square. So very good concept there by Gukesh. Queen goes to b1. Maybe with the idea of queen b2 and rook coming to a1. The knight comes back to e7. From here, the knight can go to g6. And Hans pushes his pawn to c4. He has a small edge to play with here because of the bishop pair, but Gukesh is contesting that it's nothing huge. And now he wants to trade one of the bishops here with bishop a6, and Hans is like, sorry Gukesh, I'm not going to allow you to do that yet. Bishop comes back to c8. And now queen to b2. So the queen is angling to maybe push the pawn to d4 somewhere. But Gukesh quickly goes and puts pressure on the knight on f3. The rook can come to a1, attacking the queen. The knight can now jump over to h4. I think it's important to see, I mean, most likely queen c8, a move to just come in this direction, but he goes queen b8, Gukesh. And what white cannot allow is bishop takes knight, pawn takes, with knights jumping into the f4 square. That would be a bit too much. What? What? Hans, instead of moving the knight away, sacks it? What the hell is happening? And look at Anish Giri there. Shocked. Absolutely stunned. He's like, what is going on? What? What the hell? And everyone's shocked. I'm pretty sure Gukesh himself is like, whoa. He gives this expression like, okay, let's see what's coming up. Takes here. Hans Niemann, well, his logic is that after queen takes e5, by the way, I was wondering if he had something like bishop b4 in mind to take here, but then queen d8 and black is completely fine. So queen e5, knight g6, queen g3. And what Hans is essentially saying is that his central pawns are dangerous. And c5 played by Gukesh. Maybe a better move was queen c8, so that after h3 you go bishop e6 back. And pushes his pawn to f4. And avoiding the trade of queens. Now, if you get h3 and the bishop goes away, notice that the knight on g6 is hanging because of the pin. But h5, what a beautiful move by Gukesh. This move is very, very strong. So now he would like to play h4 next. e5 played. And now pawn to h4, attacking the queen. The queen has to move. He goes queen e3. And Gukesh brings his knight to h5. You can see all of the black pieces wonderfully posted. If queen takes c5, you can simply chop off the pawn on f4. Black is better. So he goes queen e4. And now queen c8, planning to control the f5 square. Rook a4 played here by Hans. His position is almost lost here. Queen f5. And he takes the queen. Bishop takes queen. Now the f4 pawn. Okay, it's a bit soft. It's been protected. King f2. Maybe he wants to play g3. Gukesh goes bishop d7. Rook comes up to a7 to attack the bishop. One of the things which is difficult for Gukesh is to kind of find a weak spot in the white's camp and try to latch on to it, because he goes king f3, and that's a mistake. Should have taken here and played g3 perhaps, but now bishop b3, cb3 and just rook d8. This should give black a big advantage, and I think Hans is in trouble. He goes first f5, limiting these pawns. If you play ef6, rook f6 is very good for black. So f5. And Hans Niemann plays rook a6, attacking the knight on g6, king h7, defending the knight, and now rook to d6 played. Although he stops Gukesh's rook d8, but what about Gukesh's rook b8? Rook b8 is just winning. Now, there's also this very interesting move h3 when you have this pawn nicely into the camp of white. And Gukesh just calculating his way through, plays the move rook b8, and now he's totally winning here. Hans Niemann is utterly lost. He goes g4, but you can take en passant here. H takes g3, h takes g3, and now rook takes on b3. He takes. Well, when you have to make a move like bishop e1, it's not a happy sign. And now king e3. c3 should win. He takes on d3, but even c3 was very strong. Rook takes d3. And now for Gukesh, whether to trade the rooks or not is a question. He's winning. So he can trade. He does it. It's move 40 completed. Both players get 30 extra minutes on the clock. This position is winning. What Gukesh needs to do is maybe just bring his king over and then slowly stabilize. I understand that if both the pawns are traded, it's a draw here for black. So black needs to be a little bit careful, and boom, Gukesh takes on f4. But why? But why was this even needed? What is the point of this? He could have calmly built his position. G takes f4, and Gukesh thinks that this endgame is winning because now he has two passers. This is dangerous now. The position has become equal, but in a practical game, it might not be easy to hold because black king is going here and attacking this pawn on e5. Hans Niemann starts to calculate here. He has to be very, very accurate because he can't get a draw otherwise. Of course, a move like king e3 loses on the spot to knight g2. So you have to be like king d4, and he goes king d4. And what Gukesh is hoping for is to get his king to e6. If he can manage to do that, then he should be in a good situation. Bishop goes to b4, and now king f7, king e6. He goes king f7. Now very important not to allow the king to come here. So bishop d2, hitting the knight so that the white king can start moving forward. He gives a check. King d5 a must. You also can't allow the black king to go to d7 because once it gets there, check and king comes up. So king e7, you have to play king c6. It's a must move. Yes, the only move, and he finds it. Hans Niemann defending this really well since Gukesh sacked a piece. Check. And I think you have to come back. King d5. Knight comes back and the king goes to c6. g5 played. Oof. Now bishop b4 check is important to push the king away. He does it. He gives the check. Hans has things under control. King f7, and now king to d6. Just bringing the king back here closer, but he goes king d5. And this is losing because black has the move g4. It's very interesting because if you stop the pawn here, knight f4 check, king d6, and now knight d3, and black is faster with the pawns. It's winning, but instead Gukesh goes knight f4 check first. And this allows king d6, stopping king e6. And now g4 is the move that's very, very powerful. Pushes the pawn to g4. Bishop goes to a5. And this is a great defensive move for Hans. He's able to calculate it through. Knight goes back to e6. Just so that you know, g3 does not work because of e6, knight e6, and king e5. And if here he wants to play bishop b6, this is incredible defense found by Hans. Knight e6, he goes back bishop e1, knight to g5, and he comes back king d5. No king coming up to e6, and yeah, Gukesh is like, his enthusiasm should definitely be dropping by now, because you can see he's on the clock down to 3 minutes. He pushes his pawn to f4, but now the king can quickly get back. Yes, he plays king d5, f3, g3. He goes f3. Bishop comes to g3. And knight f4 played. King e4 attacking the knight. And knight h5. The bishop comes to h4, controlling this diagonal, and the king must enter to f5, but Gukesh stops it. But now these pawns are all stopped. If you play g3, I just take it. Bishop f2. King e7. And you can see Gukesh's look there. It's a look of a man who's like, how did I even botch this up totally? I mean, it's just too much. King f7. Bishop h4. And Hans Niemann has a perfect fortress here. There's nothing that Gukesh can do. And the position is a draw. He plays his king to e6, offers a draw. And Hans Niemann, of course, has to accept it. Yes, the draw offer has been accepted here. And Gukesh is like, I should have been winning there in this position. And why did you have to sacrifice the knight on f4 is the big question. Why did Gukesh feel the need to sacrifice it at that moment? Maybe we should analyze if there was a simpler way to win. And I believe there was. There was a way where he could calmly bring his knight back. He could calmly go for the g5 break and step by step improve his game. But here, Hans Niemann, well, first he sacked a piece which was just completely bonkers. Then Gukesh sacked a piece which was completely bonkers. I mean, this game was truly a fighting game, I must say, by both these players. But maybe in terms of quality, I think the players themselves would agree that they could play better than what they did today. I like the fact that both of them are speaking to each other, analyzing, and that's also very nice to see that the youngsters just are okay with each other, are good sort of off the board. Not friends maybe, but at least they like to discuss chess with each other. Let's first spend a couple of minutes on the sacrifice by Niemann. I think it was perhaps not that great, but it was not that bad as well. Because if you see, the pawns are rushing down and this bishop is very strong, it's not so easy to, like for example, queen c8 is the computer's move. But then you also see that you can push it away. There's also rook a7. Say for example, h3, bishop e6. And if I take, and then queen takes c7, it does feel like, oh, there is something that white's getting here. But of course, black, the engine completely says that it's not a good idea. So that sacrifice by Niemann wasn't particularly great. And then we come to Gukesh's sacrifice, which came at this point in the game. At this point, I think Gukesh could calmly just play king g8, for example, king d4, king f7, king d5, and then reroute his knight from f8 here. Say, for example, white waits, then knight e6, maybe I go king d6 just as a move. And here it's perhaps something where Gukesh thought it's not so easy to make progress. But even if you play a move like g6, for example, wait, bring your other knight in, let's say, for example, knight e8, and then you try to bring your knight this way. It's perhaps a bit complicated, but in a way, it should work in this step by step manner. I don't think that white would be able to do much here in this position. Black's knights are going to slowly try to come up, and there are plenty of squares. So maybe Gukesh was a little bit worried, that, oh, what if there's no way it's a fortress? And then he sacked here. And I think what Hans did incredibly well is that he understood that black king cannot be allowed to get to e6. That was the main point. And then he just made sure that that was never happening. But he made a mistake here, which was to play the move king d5. King d6 was important. King d5, the point is somehow with g4 it's working out. So the natural question is, why does king d6 g4 not work? Because here there is bishop e1 and knight f4 doesn't come as a check here to the king. And because it doesn't come as a check, you basically save time here. Because in what happened in the game, if he did go g4, bishop e1 and then check, king d6, now knight d3 is an important move that you get attacking the bishop. And with that one extra tempo, black is able to win here. So it's actually pure calculation based here, which is why one could also say that Gukesh's decision was quite good, because he did get a winning position after sacking the piece. But then once he did not find g4, Hans Niemann defended it very accurately, bringing the king back in time, and this was a fortress.